know, sometimes I talk to people and I explain to them what I'm doing, that I'm riding my bicycle across America, and their first reaction is, I can never do that. Or they'll say something like, I can't even ride a bike for 5 or 10 miles. And they're standing on their feet saying this. They're able-bodied. And it makes me think about a lot of the stuff that I've seen along the way, looking at some depressed communities, poor communities, wealthy communities as I've traveled. And I see that there's this mentality of mediocrity, that people will look at something like what I'm doing, which anybody's capable of doing. If you're able-bodied, anybody's capable of doing this. But they say, I could never, right? And it's like, you've already set a limit for yourself. You already determined what is not going to be in your life because you said, I could never. And I think, you know, we've all got 24 hours in the day. We all have choices to make, and who we are right now is the sum, the accumulation, the aggregate accumulation of those choices, of those mindsets, of that mentality. But when you have the perception of I could never, that perception guarantees that you won't. And I noticed that there are places that I saw these two differences. When I would cycle past a house that was beautiful and made up, and it looked like somebody put a lot of hard work into it over years, and then I see somebody sitting outside that house on a porch, on a deck. The houses that I saw that were very prosperous, the people sitting in those porches and decks, if they were alone, they were reading a book, or they were reading a magazine. They were engaged in something. They weren't just sitting there passively, chit-chatting, talking nonsense. A lot of them were still continuing somehow to feed their minds. Now, I'm not saying all of them did that, but a good amount of them did. And then when I would pass by some neighborhoods that were really depressed, very poor, and I would see the same thing. I would see people sitting outside on their front porch of their trailer or their house, and what I would see was this. Some of them were smoking weed, drinking, getting high. Some of them were just sitting out there doing nothing. And when you looked around the house, unnecessarily, they had all this junk piled up in the front of the house, just sitting there. It had no purpose being there. It was just trash. I get it. Some of these places are rentals, so people that move in don't care. But hell, look at those houses. How do you get to a point where it's okay to have a rusty tricycle for 7 years sitting on your front lawn that no child has used for years? How do you get to that point where it's okay to just leave the garbage in front of your house and people just dump waste in front of it because they don't care? How do you get to that point? And I would see some of these houses that, if they were just taking care of a little bit, if there was just some kind of order there, then maybe the inside of the house would also be clean. Maybe the inside of the house would be maybe not wealthy, but well cared for. And maybe the individual would also be somebody that was well cared for, that took care of themselves. But what I see instead is people sitting on that front desk, chit-chatting about nonsense, gossiping about nothing, on their phone, seeing how many likes they got, putting up these phony lives on Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok, giving the illusion to everyone else that they're more than what they really are. But what they really are in the end is people who have become satisfied with being mediocre, with saying, I'm okay with living in a house full of holes, but I'll complain about it and not do anything to change that. I'm okay with wasting all the time that God has given me on this earth. I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with that. I don't want to rock the boat. And they have this false sense of security that if they just keep making those same okay decisions, they're going to be safe. Well, the next thing you know, as I've seen, a hurricane comes through and they're out of here. And now they're depending on FEMA to get them some housing. Or just, I see this country and all the stuff that I've seen so far as being a place full of potential and tremendous opportunity. And yet, as I travel, I see so many people who are satisfied with mediocrity. And they don't bring out the best in themselves. They don't try to better themselves at all. And I get it. A lot of them have no access to the information that they need to change their life. But I see that as less and less of an excuse because of what I see available on YouTube. You want to get motivated? Everybody's heard that word motivate. Just type in motivation on YouTube and thousands of tools will pop up to help you change your life, to achieve those goals. So when I hear people saying, oh, I could never do that, and it's like, well, are you making it easier for me then? Because if everybody said I could do this, it'd probably be a lot harder for me to get a bike, or maybe not, maybe it'd be easier. But I keep seeing that, and how am I choosing to live my life, right? How are you choosing to live your life? Are you looking at something in your life that is doable and saying, I could never do that? So now, don't ever say that, I could never. Unless you aspire to be like Shaquille O'Neal and you're 5'2". Of course, genetically you can never do that. But what I'm talking about is releasing the potential that you have by simply making the choice to be uncomfortable, to be disciplined, to exercise something that's going to cause you some sort of pain and suffering so that you can pay right now for that better future instead of living in that house, in that mobile home with all the holes in it, smoking weed and drinking St. Ides. Because that's what I saw. I mean, I'm still not in Florida yet. All right, cool.